Hi, I'm Ryan Austin, and I want to show you my Wwise Unity audio implementation project that I made. Give you a little rundown of how it all works and how I set it up. To start that off, I thought I'd show you the actual Unity project itself. So I'm going to run around in here and trigger some things and show you what's going on. Here we go.
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for where he was an employee. He sat at his and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Orders came to him through a monitor and odd buttons to push. How long to push them, and in what order.
That about wraps everything up here in Unity. Let's move on over to Wwise and see what's going on in here. Here in our audio tab, we have our buses, our sound effects, and the music. Let's start off with the music. Well, we also have, I guess, first we have our two different state groups with the different states attributed to each one, our different game parameters, which are used to control our TPCs. We have our sound bank. We have all of our events in here. We don't use these ones, but I'll get to that later. I'll show you what that's for. We have our different attenuations for spatialized audio. So let's start off with the music. Down here in the interactive music hierarchy, we've got our switch. We've got our switch with this explosion RTPC on it. So when we trigger the explosion, it sets this RTPC to slow down the playback speed and also lowering the pitch, and that happens really quickly as we see here, and then it comes back off really slowly when it's released. And the switch is also where we set up the transition segments between each of the 4 location states. going into the Wii room, coming out of the Wii room, going to the forest and coming out of the forest. And then we have the bunker music is the same as the main area music. So what we've got here is we got the forest segment inside the playlist, so it loops, and then we've got the main layer that's always playing right here, and we have the second layer that's comes in with RTPC that we trigger with an event. So it sounds like this. And that's pretty much the same for all of the playlists, all the segments and tracks that are going on. Same here, we've got two tracks, one that's controlled by RTPC. This third one, the radio, this has RTPC here, but this is just for simulating it in the Soundcaster. It's actually controlled here in the positioning tab with position and orientation 3D spatialization. So we override the parent, add that on there, threw on this radio attenuation that I made that reduces the volume as you walk away, increases the low pass filtering, and the spread. So as you get closer, there's less spread in the audio, so you can more easily tell if it's in your left or right ear the further you walk away. So that's how we controlled that one. And the Wii Room playlist, this is the only playlist with an intro. So you can see here in the playlist, we throw the intro right here to play once, and then the main section will play infinitely, and that loops infinitely until you leave the area and come back. And then the second layer, the nomnoms, just because it's funny, I guess, also being controlled by RTPC. So you see right here. That's about it for the music. So we can close this, and I'll show you the sound effects. Here in the actor mixer hierarchy, we've got this actor mixer with ambience folder, and here we have this blend container, so it's playing everything in the container at the same time. This owls random container, so it has a bunch of owl sounds that are randomized, and each one has a different probability of being played, some less than others, some more. A couple of silent sound effects in there just so you don't get overrun with owls. And then we have this nighttime ambience, which is the crickets and the outdoor sounds and the rain ambience. These all have different states applied to them. So here we have the 4 different area states. For the rain, all the volumes are relatively the same. There's a little adjustments depending on where you are, and lots of low pass filtering going on. When you're inside or when you're in the forest, it's a little bit louder and a little less low pass filtering going on, but still a decent amount compared to when you're in the main area where there's the volume is just at 0, or at least at unity, and no low pass filtering going on there. Same with the nighttime ambience. Oops. Basically inaudible in the bunker, inaudible in the Wii Shop room. Pretty quiet in the main area, but you'll still hear it. Like when I turned off the rain, it was still very noticeable. And then a lot louder when you enter the forest. Same with the owls. Completely inaudible unless you're in the forest. Then the volume comes up a little bit. So it's basically a forest-only audio that goes on. And that's it for the ambiences. Here we have the dialogue. Let me close that. Dialogue. We got the 2D, which is from the Stanley Parable. I just thought it'd be funny to use the Stanley Parable dialogue audio in a sequence container, so they all play one after the other. And we have some ducking going on with the dialogue, but that's applied on the bus, so I'll show you that when we get there. Here for the 2D dialogue in the advanced settings, we have the limit sound instances to 1, so you only hear one dialogue voice at a time, and when you trigger it again, it will cut whatever you're listening to at that dialogue piece at that point to play the next one. That is not the case here for the 3D dialogue, so these will overlap each other if you keep triggering them. Here we also have position and orientation, similar to the radio attenuation, but we have a different one for dialogue that's a lot smaller, as you can see here with the max distance of 7, but basically the same things applied to it. The cone filter, so when you're next to or behind the guy, it's a little quieter, a little more low pass. And then we have other various sound effects like the crow, which is in that tree, also has an attenuation for the crow, but it's only position, not position and orientation, so it doesn't matter if you're next to the tree or behind the tree, it'll come out the same. As you can see, there's no cone filtering happening there either. So it's just distance. And then we have the explosion sound effect and the UI click in the main area. Nothing special going on there. The buses. Let me close this up. Got our music bus that plays all the music stuff. Here we have the explosion state, which will low pass the bus and lower the volume when we trigger the explosion. Same thing goes on with the ambience, except we're also pitch shifting this down. The reason we didn't pitch shift down in the state is because applying it with the state doesn't actually lower the pitch or the speed or anything like that to the music. I'm not actually entirely sure why, but that's why we have the RTPC on the game switch to do that for us. So in an event, we're triggering the explosion state and setting the parameter for the explosion to be lower, so it does all of those things at the same time. Here in the dialogue bus, we have the explosion lowering the pitch and low passing for the explosion when that's on and resetting it when it's off. And we have location states applied, but just for the auxiliary send, which is, I'll show you here, reverb. So depending on where you are in the game, if you're in the main area, there's no reverb applied. If you're in the Wii Shop or the bunker, there's a good amount of reverb applied. It looks like there's a lot of reverb applied in the forest, but there's no dialogue triggered in the forest, so I just didn't bother messing with that parameter. And I believe that's everything going on. The ducking. That's right. So here in the dialogue bus, we have auto ducking set up for the ambience and the music buses, so that when you trigger the dialogue, it ducks these two buses by either 6 or 10 decibels, and then they come back in pretty quickly right here when the dialogue finishes. So that's everything going on with the buses. Let's look at our events. Here we have our setting the layer parameter. The parameters for the layer events here, off and on for the forest, the main layer, the Wii room, the rain. And these are all set to global, so they'll trigger properly in Unity. We have our state events here, setting the game state for location. We have the triggering the dialogue. The explosion one here is a little interesting. We set the explosion state to duck the buses. We set the parameter for explosion to dip the playback speed and pitch of the music. Then we play the sound effects, and then we reset the state back to off and the parameter back to normal after a 3-second delay. Plus the really slow slew rate interpolation of the music, so it comes back to normal at a delayed speed. And then the UI click, the start game, which sets the location to the main one, plays the switch music and the ambient sound effects. And then a stop all event, which cuts all of the audio over the course of 6 seconds, 6-second fade. And then, so that's all the events. And then this folder right here, these are the events, the same events as the triggering the layers, except they're set to game object here instead of global. And the reason for that is Unity needs them to be set to global to interpret them correctly, but we need it set to game object here in Wwise so the Soundcaster can interpret them correctly. And that's only for this event type, the set game parameter. For some reason, that doesn't work in the Soundcaster if this is set to global. But speaking of Soundcaster, we bring that up and I'll show you one more time what we got going on here. So I'll just run you through everything one more time. We'll start the game. Turn on the music or the rain. Here the rain's coming in strong. We're outside. Turn on this layer. We'll simulate getting close to the radio. You could also hit this. What it sounds like when we go in the bunker. You hear the rain ducks a little bit, gets low passed. You hear the dialogue has some reverb on it as well.
Every day, every month,
Then we go back outside.
of every year.
No more reverb on. Hit the explosion. Where everything ducks and then swoops back in. Go into the forest. There's the transition segment. The owls. The ambience is louder. The rain is low passed. The second layer. Go back to the main state. The owls go away. The rain comes back stronger. The ambience ducks down. We'll go into the Wii room. It's a unique transition segment. There's the intro. And And now we're into the looping section of the playlist. You can hear the rain is just like the bunker. Low pass, volume is down. Turn on the second layer. Just for fun. Explosion. To the main area. And then to wrap everything up, we'll fade out by about 6 seconds. And that's everything that's going on in the Wwise project. Here in Unity, we have those things triggered. Let me come over to the scene. Right here, you can see this big box around the forest. Turn the mesh renderer. Attached the game state trigger to the AK event. Trigger enter to forest and trigger exit. We have another AK event back to the main state. So when you're inside, it's playing the first music, and when you leave, it triggers back to the main music. And that's what we have for all of the states. And then all the objects have their own triggers and things going on with those as well. And that's really it. That's my little project showcase.